Welcome back to Incremental, the continuous improvement podcast. This is our practice edition where we talk about lean improvements made throughout the 2 weeks and tie them back to lean principles. This is episode 139. I am Uriel Eisen of Austere Manufacturing and Arta Cards.
And I am Devin Bedoni of Like and Precision. And our quote, if your supply chain runs without many problems, you either have a great supply chain or you're running very fat.
Excellent.
I feel like this needs to apply internally as well.
Ooh.
And
point.
in fact, actually, when I read it, I thought of it as more of an internal process kind of situation.
Yeah.
But applies across the board.
So something we've sort of honed in on a bit in like talking to investors with Arta is that like supply chains and value chains are kind of the same. They're made up of these very small fulfillment problems of every station needing stuff from the previous station.
Yep.
In the amount needed when it's needed.
Yep.
And all the problems scale with your ability to do that well all the way through, right?
Yeah. And
you can do it big batches, and the more efficient you are, the more just in time things become.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so yeah, they are sort of, in my mind, kind of the same thing, right? Your supply chain can be internal, your supply chain can be external. And
yeah.
I think it's so interesting, like, and counterintuitive, and such a competitive edge to embrace creating problems as a method for learning as an organization. Like, so many people go into process improvements with an eye toward making them not fail. Mm-hmm. But the like Toyota has a quota for how many andon pulls there should be.
Yeah.
Right. And if the line isn't stopping, like either you have a perfect production line, like, right. What's the quote? It's like either you have no problems or you're hiding your problems, which is synonymous, right? It's the same idea. But
yeah, it's so easy to feel very accomplished when everything's just running smooth. And it's nice. I mean, to be fair, it's a very nice feeling.
It's delightful. Yeah.
It's wonderful.
I hear. Yeah.
But you won't. I think what's important to remember is it will never last. Like all things.
You know, just earlier today, right before the podcast, a different friend said to me, it's important to remember everything goes to zero in the end. So it seems to be the theme for the day.
I mean, it's like all things submit to entropy, right?
Right.
And so,
or disruption.
Or disruption.
Something.
Yeah. And so if things are running smooth, it's like you're either choosing sort of like short-term comfort with the knowledge that it will eventually fail.
Right.
Or you're choosing to fail now with the knowledge that it will help you improve.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it.
I quit.
All right. And I quit.
Go work for somebody else.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're going to go out of business unless they're doing this.
As long as I'm retired, it's okay.
That's the spirit. Yeah.
Not really. It's fun, I think.
No, it's exhausting. I think I mentioned last episode that I spent 8 hours cleaning out the shop.
Yeah.
That was really energizing. And I think for the last month to 3 months, maybe 4 months, maybe a year. No. It's been a bit of a grind, like just kind of a beat down, not lack of success in any way, just like really intense.
Yeah.
And the feeling that I really don't like that I've sort of identified is when you know there's a lot of things to improve, but that it doesn't really make sense to stop and improve them. Or like you don't have the bandwidth, which I know all the books are like, you do have time to improve them.
Right.
Do it anyway.
It's like brushing your teeth.
You'll never have time. But like, that's not, not to be, heresy over here, but I have not found that to be true. Like,
right.
If there's a bunch of emails in your inbox and those people are potential customers and you need more customers or you want more customers or, it's like, I will make more money if I respond to those emails and money's good at the moment. I mean, typically, but in business.
Yeah. critical, turns out, actually.
Yeah. So anyway, it's been, so that's been a grind. And I think having the bandwidth to improve again and like take the time to make things nice, has been nice and re-energizing, but no, it can get really exhausting. I mean, continuous improvement is not only you should always be doing it, but also you should always be doing it. Like there's no end. It's not like, great, you eliminated the waste. You're good.
Always and forever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like we should at every moment in time be doing it. And for every moment in time, we'll be doing it. Yeah. It's kind of hard to stare down.
On that topic, should we talk about all the things we didn't improve this week?
No, things we did. You want to...
Side note, bamboo printers, so cool.
Yeah. Oh, so you got one.
We got one.
And?
Love it.
Okay, being closer to the not, what are the differences that make it so good? Because it is so good.
Ease of use, I think, is pretty high on the list. So that would be both like the physical, like loading filament, et cetera, like the fact that Fusion 360 like auto links and will just like pop your bamboo window for you. You don't have to export anything really. It's just like...
You can do that with bamboo also.
With what? Prusa?
Oh, sorry, with Prusa. Yeah.
Oh, maybe I just didn't know about that.
Okay. Are you using their native workflow?
I don't know.
Like, are you clicking like export
in
or
Fusion?
The 3D print? You select the 3D printer. Last time I used it, it was like, do you want to like 3D print right from Fusion and connect your machine?
No, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
we're launching the bamboo.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But still, way more streamlined than like saving to a location, all that.
100%.
And then speed and quality. So,
yeah,
I mean, kind of everything.
Cost, speed, and quality.
Cost, speed, and quality.
Yeah.
And then we've started. We never really like took the time to troubleshoot printing in PETG or other more complicated or higher quality plastics on the Prusa. I know it's possible, but we just like didn't have time for it. Yeah, really. We could have made time for it, but we did not. Yep. Whether that would have been cheaper than just buying another printer, probably not. But all in all, and so I guess the last but not least is just being able to like print from your computer.
I know.
Not having to, theoretically I could do it from home if I thought about it. Yeah. I found it's just really lowered the friction for me personally to print things, and that's great.
That's awesome. What stuff are you printing?
We're mostly printing tool tags. What else did we print? Mostly tool tags so far. Okay. And it just does those way faster. Yeah. Like massively faster. And we're doing it in PETG, so they hopefully won't break.
Oh, nice.
And then on the topic of like reinvigorating myself in the workplace, we're shutting down the shop for a bit this winter for the holiday season, which the last bunch of years it's just been this like race to like Christmas Eve and that to like get stuff out the door, and then usually working some between Christmas and New Year's for end of year deadlines. And we just decided we were going to shut down for 2 weeks. Yeah. Finally have enough buffer, cash flow buffer.
That's awesome.
Anyhow, that means it's been many, many years since I did like a fun project in the shop for like the holidays.
Oh, cool.
So I started designing something yesterday that I'm going to make for, just like stocking stuffer kind of stuff. Yeah. And so I did some 3D prints of those today.
Oh, yeah.
So just little stuff like that.
And then you can hold it in your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty sweet.
You convince my wife that my designs don't suck.
Right. See?
Yeah.
See, honey?
So far, no success.
Wow.
She's working with us now. And so I handed one to her today, and she was just like, why are you showing me this?
This is trash. That's fine.
Yeah. Anyway, kicking it off on a real improvement, updated our tool naming SOP. So we routinely purchase new tools and add them to our library. Yep. I'd say a handful a week, probably, it seems like right now. Wow. And it's amazing how many different ways you can name a tool. for all the different variables of the tool, different ways we like, abbreviate, contract, etc., sequencing of dimensions. Anyway, so someone had written one a while back. It wasn't really being referenced.
Okay.
I went back to check it and was like, this needs work. So updated it, made the other person who's adding to the library aware of it. And now I'm starting to use it.
Very cool.
Personally, which is helpful instead of just pulling it out of my head.
That's awesome.
Because it turns out I'm not really any better at that than anyone else. It's just as random.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So on our website, we work off of packing slips to produce these orders.
Okay.
Right? In making buckles, someone submits an order. The naming scheme that it prints out, speaking of naming, is related to in which order you have the options on the website.
Okay.
So it just makes sense. It concatenates, first option, second option, third option. Mm-hmm. And we had 2 color selection options in a row. Oh. And so we have 2 color options for the color of the buckle often. And so here's the problem. So it would go like, light blue, purple, light blue / purple, dash 48 inches would be, and then because that one doesn't have a webbing color option, and then you might get one that says coyote dash coyote. And so in your head, you're like, oh, that's a coyote body with a coyote slide.
Yeah.
But actually, or worse actually, is if you get a coyote dash Ranger green, because you're like, oh, coyote body, Ranger green inside. So you make that, and then you go back to look, and you're like, oh, it's meant to be a complete coyote buckle with a Ranger green webbing. And we've been, and shipping shipping the wrong thing to a customer.
It's not a good look.
Very expensive on top of being a bad look.
Yeah.
Because then they email us. Then we have to read their email. Then we have to rectify the situation. It's our fault, so we'd normally just send them a new one because, like, hey, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Have fun with 2 straps now, right?
Yeah.
So we definitely want to make it right. But, yeah, so it's really expensive, and we've had, we have those issues. So anyway, so I moved the options around, so you'll never have that problem.
Cool.
So turns out, PSA, going to the Gemba, very useful. I haven't filled orders in quite a long time.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Also, I'm pretty good at making improvements, and not to say other people aren't, but like fresh eyes. And so, I was working in there, and I'm like, man, this is really confusing. Like, I'm going to stop and fix. So
nice.
Did that. That was very rewarding. The perfect slam dunk improvement, super fast, very impactful, cost no money except for the time. So
yeah,
big win.
Curious.
Mm-hmm.
I am curious. It seems like a good workflow, but is there another workflow in which you generate your own work orders that are not packing slips that are more customizable?
Yeah, that's a can of worms, like a nice can of worms. Like, I'd love to dig into it because
gummy worms.
Ooh. Yeah. Chocolate rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Anyway, so like pick to light would really help us with speed. So like with lights illuminating instead of being like, okay, purple 3/4 cam buckle, which here's the cam buckles, purple. Yep. Yeah. Here's a blue one.
That is a can of worms for sure.
That's a can of worms, but like that would be delightful. Short of that, I am more and more of the opinion that we should be pre-assembling more inventory as a finished good to achieve production leveling, because there's a lot of stuff we move pretty reliably. Yeah. And if we do true production to demand, which obviously is the goal, it introduces, it's very hard to isolate. In fact, I have no idea, short of doing that, how you would produce to order without just a longer lead time and still do production leveling, right? Like you need some ability to...
Sorry, back up a little bit. What's the proposal?
If you're producing to true demand, you are following market fluctuations.
Yes.
if you are meant to, which Toyota says you should, isolate your production line from the market, insulate it with a pacemaker station.
Yeah.
Either that station, if that station is truly producing to demand, it's not isolating your production line.
Mm-hmm.
I think. I might be wrong, but I just can't see, unless they have a long buffer of orders, right? Of unfilled orders. And they go like, okay, well, let's achieve production leveling by filling the orders in the correct mix so that our product mix that we're calling from upstream processes is fairly level.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you need to pre-assemble finished goods. You don't have to pre-assemble finished goods. The way it works, like if you're doing a Camry with a million options, you don't have to pre-assemble a Camry, like as they talk about frequently. A complete Camry, but you do need to be pulling on all the value chains all the time, right? So you always should be making a few Camry hoods.
Right. And
so achieving that needs a pacemaker station, and that can be non-finished goods. And so maybe, anyway, I'm like kind of thinking live here. Yeah. So leveling production, I think if we pushed our pacemaker function upstream one step, so that that would be one way to truly assemble to order while insulating our production line, but it does not insulate our assembly cell from the market. And it's just, you get thrash. So you get here's a great example. And I think we've talked about this. Monday we're slammed because a lot of people shop over the weekend.
Yep.
Tuesday we're slammed because a lot of people shop over the weekend.
Yeah.
And they want their stuff. And then Wednesday it's kind of like, okay, we have orders from the day, but our capacity needs to be sized for the weekend.
Yeah.
And then by Thursday, Friday, we have more room for improvements, etc.
So your buffer would be between your assembly station and fulfillment. Is that right?
We can put it wherever we want. My thought was we know some goods sell pretty well, and so we could introduce finished goods inventory, and then those Kanbans would drop into the same bin as our orders drop into. And then you might come across an order for 10 black 1-inch ladder locks. So then you go consume those. And the nice thing about consuming them is that now you're calling for more production upstream.
Yeah.
And instead of, for whatever reason, we have a lull in demand for those, but we know it's going to come back in and we don't know, but then it comes back in 2 days. Now you're whip, the bullwhip effect up your production line. And actually you see the tail of that whip when sometimes we order a bunch of stock and sometimes we don't. And it's not a problem for you. I assume maybe I'm wrong, but it's such a small,
no effect on this.
Yeah. So, but anyway,
interesting.
How do we get into this? Anyway, it's a can of worms to have the data, but it is what we want to do is probably manage the data in Arda, because we have connected Shopify to it. And so we can pull in real orders and then we can mix them with some function to get production leveling.
Yeah. That all sounds cool. All I was suggesting was something that you could print out that was more legible. That wasn't just the actual packing slip.
We've solved that problem. We scan it and it's up on a screen, and it's intended. They have a tool in ShipStation, which we use to show you each line item with an image. That was another improvement I did. Some of the images were incorrect. And so I went and fixed those images, which, either you ship a reject or you start reading on top of looking at the image, in which case you don't have the savings of visual control.
Interesting. So you have the image, you have it fully written out, but then you're also looking at a paper that's concatenated and shortened?
No, when you're looking at the image and it's written out, it's still confusing in the format I described for the reasons described. So it's better if you just switch up the order of those options so that it's buckle color, some other options that have nothing to do with color, and then webbing color at the end.
Yeah. Gotcha.
That was the ticket.
Interesting. Wow. We should rename this podcast The Devil's in the Details.
I mean, yeah. I mean, on a call recently, a customer was kind of like, an Arda customer was kind of like, maybe I'm getting too in the weeds. And I'm like, no, actually, I think you're not in the weeds enough. I think you need to go stand on the production floor and see what's going on and not just speculate about this stuff. Like,
right.
No, get really in the, like,
yeah.
No, you're problematically in the weeds.
You're staring at the weeds. You need to be in the weeds.
Yeah.
You're talking to the gardener.
Yeah, and it's crazy how impactful these things can be. I mean, that's going to really free up like a real amount of time for us every week.
Yeah.
In speeding up production because there's less confusion, and then also in reducing negative customer interactions.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I had a really interesting conversation with Xander, founder of what was that high-end clothing company, mountain bike clothing? Kitspo. Yeah, who was doing a lot of lean stuff, a lot like single piece flow garment production. And one of the things he said, which I really liked, is that your brand is the cumulative, something like expectation. Oh shit! Now I'm losing it. Like cumulative experience of the product, the expectation, and the execution, or something. So it's like I'm not getting it all, but what I liked about it is that it takes the definition of your brand out of your hands. It's actually just like delivering on the things that your customer is expecting, and then the quality of your product is also what they're expecting.
Right. It's not just like how well can you present, or like
like what slogan you read on your website. It's actually in the mind of the consumer.
Yeah.
And that's your brand.
That's a cool definition.
Yeah. I didn't nail it. I'll try to dig it up and deliver it for real. Like he said it.
Yeah.
It was better.
Cool. Well, a little minor improvement. We made 3D printed collet trays for PG collets.
Oh, cool.
Because introduced a new series of collets into the shop and had no way to organize them.
Okay.
So that was another thing we did on the bamboo. Very, very quick and easy.
Very cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry.
Anyway, I've been thinking, off and on quite a bit the last year or two about other machines to maybe purchase in the shop, leaving the brother universe, not leaving it completely behind, but, a departure.
Yeah.
And even just the introduction of a different style of tool holder into the shop with the same taper really just like drives home the implications of switching to a machine platform that had an entirely different tool holder.
Oh, fascinating.
Interface, and like what that would really mean for our process. Not to say we couldn't tackle it, but it's definitely one of those like it makes the like new and shiny appeal.
Tarnishes it a little.
It's seriously tarnished. Yeah. Let's put it that way. I guess it just brings it back to ground and just being like, okay, we will do this when it is truly necessary, not as like a preparatory fun purchase.
Interesting.
Because it is new and shiny. Yeah. It's like, it's got to really do something that our current machines don't do. Otherwise, not worth it.
Interesting. I forget who I was talking to, but just like how easy it is to underestimate standardization.
Yeah.
And I forget if I mentioned this. We added all of the bamboo stuff into the recommended items in Arda, so you can just add them to your instance with the click of a button, and it has the images and everything. So
nice.
That's easy. Also, maybe I'll stop by the shop if you want, and we can set up internal production cards for the 3D printed stuff with the with the file read on the card. Then you just
that'd be rad.
It's pretty sweet.
I would not say no to that for sure.
I'll stop by. Okay, this is kind of in the weeds, but yeah. We have been kind of hitting a cap on how many meetings we can take in a day, which is a huge bummer and also awesome, but sitting in a chair for 8 hours sucks. Anyway, so I'm trying. So we changed our Arda demo Calendly link. Also, shout out to Calendly. Love the product.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so awesome. We now have like a bunch of different meeting types. For people who don't know, you can then just email someone a link and they can pick a time that works for them.
Yeah.
It definitely creates a lot of embarrassing failures early on for me, because the whole point of the product is to avoid a back and forth. And if you're not diligent about your calendar and someone goes through your link and books a time and you're like, oh, I was meant to be like traveling to the ferry.
Yeah.
And I didn't put that into my calendar. So definitely room for, like, I made a bunch of improvements there around restricting the times, around extending it so people can only book 8 hours in advance, which is all right. Like you could also do like only for next week or something. Anyway.
Yeah.
But change the demos from 45 minutes to 30 minutes so we can fit more into a day. We'll see how that is. It might be too rushed, but honestly, a lot of the people who are not serious buyers, a lot of the people who convert, I feel like see it and they're like, cool, yeah. And like, it's the people who are sort of like, I don't know. And then you spend like a bunch of time sort of maybe trying to convince them or something. And at the end of the day, they're like, I don't think we want those customers, right? Like, you know, like some people see it and they're like, we can totally plug this in and that's great. So we'll see how it goes.
It is interesting how I'd be curious to talk to like real salespeople. But I do my own.
What are you saying? Yeah.
My own experience has kind of been like when I'm shopping for something, like I know pretty quickly if it's a good fit.
Right. And
usually if I do multiple meetings, like I've almost never purchased the thing that I did like a bunch of demos and had a ton of questions.
I always have a lot of questions, but similarly, I will reach out proactively. And I think especially if you're really like, we want everyone who is a customer of Arda to have a very good experience. I don't want to talk someone into it who's going to have a bad experience.
Yeah.
And that bad experience might not mean that Arda wouldn't be a home run for them. But if they don't believe it and they're not going to put the time into it, it's just going to be like a thing they've spent money on that doesn't deliver value. So like, anyway. And the other improvement to the Calendly meeting is that I added a company question. So before we just had like, I forget, like one man. I don't like filling out a form, right? Where it's like a bunch of required questions. How big is your organization? Are you a decision maker? What position do you have? I'm like, no. But we did add one that is just like the name of your company because we were getting these meetings booked, like demos booked by like someone at Gmail. And you're kind of like, okay, now I can't look up your website to figure out like what machines you might be running, what types of supplies you might be using. So added that question. Hilariously, one of the demos booked right after was just like NA or something. So now I'm like, all right, I think that's tomorrow. So
we are not a company.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. It's like, okay, whatever. Anyway, we'll have the conversation and it'll be 30 minutes. So yeah.
Awesome. So we now have heat in the shop.
Wow.
Very exciting. Kind of, I don't know if it was this way for everybody, but I was sort of amazed at how much my personal stress level went down.
Really? Of just like not being like a little cold all day?
Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm cheery. Let's have a good time here. Took my down coat off. That was great. Nice. It's not like we have it toasty in there. We're still wearing sweatshirts. It's not like a super well insulated building.
Yeah.
But we have heat. Anyway, we have multiple dogs in the shop. The employees of mine have dogs that they bring to work. Oh. And so historically we've left the side door just open.
Okay.
To the like lay down yard so that they can go out and use the bathroom. That's cold. So the temporary fix was like, Will, one of our employees, like got some like big foam sheets from something and like we just shove them into the opening of the door and there was like a dog size hole cut out of the bottom.
Nice.
But that still left a lot of air coming through. So today they installed one of those like flap doors like you have over a walk-in freezer or something. So now there's less air going through, and also if we need to haul chips out, we don't have to like leave the door open the whole time. Anyway, nice little quality of life improvement there.
Excellent. Well, on the topic of heat, today was the first properly cold day that I was in the shop.
Yeah, it was freezing this morning. I mean, there's heavy frost last night.
And so my first call of the day, I was like, I have this little like hot air blowing heater.
Oh yeah.
And I sort of have it by my feet and I'm sort of just like borderline shivering the whole time. So then I went and got an infrared heater and mounted on the wall and it's nice being comfortable.
Makes a big difference. Yeah.
So that's a good improvement.
Nice.
I also, okay, this is a hilarious little thing that was just such a win. One of the rules of Kanban, nothing travels without a Kanban.
Mm-hmm.
Rule 1 of Kanban, we don't talk about Kanban. And at our paint department, we had baskets of prepped parts coming in with a Kanban. Mm-hmm. Then they'd get racked, and where we hang the racks of racked parts, we have places for the Kanban.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go into the oven. There's nowhere for the Kanban to go. And we have timers for every shelf in the oven. So whatever you slide into that one, you hit the timer for that load, and that way.
Yeah.
I adhered a little like adhesive clip to each timer so it can hold the Kanbans of what it's timing. Again, took 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That is another item in the recommended items tab, which is just like things we use to install. And
the adhesive clips.
Yeah, I don't know. They're not great, but they work. Like I use them quite a bit. I'd love more options, and actually I found another one I meant to buy. Anyway, just the reduction in ambiguity of like before you'd like walk up to the oven, pull something out and like kind of look back at where the racked cards were and kind of like look around, look at the sheet, look back, grab some and be like, oh wait, no, that's like, I don't know. It just was time consuming and a place where you stop and think just really needlessly. So
yeah,
it was a big win.
Interesting.
Sounds really dumb. I mean, it sounds trivial, but
right. Not trivial.
There's a lot of those left.
Yeah. I think I mentioned our 3-spindle coolant clogging issue.
No.
Last time.
Not that I remember.
No? Okay. Anyway, we've been having issues with the 3-spindle coolant filters on our M300 clogging.
Oh.
Quite a lot.
Like clogging so the flow is insufficient or like
clogging so it alarms.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So initially it was just the pre-filter, and that's a filter that's actually under vacuum, and you start to hear it whine. There's like a vacuum there's a vacuum gauge. You can watch it. But they were clogging very quickly. We're not doing anything that we thought would cause severe fines to be created, doing a lot of cleaning in the sump. Anyway, so initially that was the issue. We started buying a different filter from McMaster instead of these like 10 packs from the OEM manufacturer. That seems to be passing a lot more fine. So then the expensive downstream filter started clogging. It's been sort of a bit of a saga. In any case, one suggestion was filter fabric in the chip bin, which I've been extremely resistant to because of needing to be careful not to rip it.
Okay.
But as a first test, we bought some, we laid it down, and we're testing that. And then I think if it functions how we want to, we're going to make some like perforated stainless covers that go over the fabric. Yeah.
I wonder if you could find some grates rather than like expanded metal might be because I'm just thinking of like if you punch a bunch of holes in a sheet, there's still like, I don't know, 60% kind of occluded.
You can get higher than that, I think.
But like the flats on it would like cover. Anyway, I'm sure it'll all be good. But if it's expanded, it's like all twisted up on edge or something.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it'll matter.
Potentially. Something to guard it. Yeah.
I will say we have fabric. I know we don't do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure our solution would work for you, but we have fabric. We have a filter fabric, and then we have pond liner on top of that.
Pond, like waterproof pond liner?
No, no. I forget. Maybe it's called pond filter. Anyway, it's like an inch thick of like, it looks like Scotch-Brite.
Yeah.
And because the filter paper, when chips sit on it, it sort of can clog. And because it's letting very minimal stuff is getting through. Yeah. And between the large particles and the small particles, it can really start to let the coolant fill up on top of it. Yeah. And the pond filter just lets the coolant fall right through and keeps most of the chips off of that filter paper. And we don't replace it. We just pull the chips off of it, and then like when we clean out the sump, which is once a year maybe, we barely get fines, and we run a lot of anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if the results would be the same for you, but
how often do you have to shovel chips?
It depends how much material we're removing, I guess.
Typically,
I would say twice a day, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe a little more. I don't know.
Why? Often we're shoveling a lot more than that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we do pretty small parts.
Yeah.
So
I'm just wondering if like we would effectively be able to get the chips off the top of that pond filter.
Oh.
Like, do they slide off easily?
Not exactly. But you might try that and then your expanded metal or your grating.
Yeah.
That might be a nice triple. And then we don't replace that. We just like knock it out on the floor and vacuum off the works pretty well.
Interesting. In the weeds.
Deep in the weeds. My last improvement I talked a lot about last episode was just properly cleaning the shop. Cleaning is not the word. 3S'ing.
Yeah.
2S'ing actually. Not the sweep part.
Yeah.
I mean, I did some of that, but mostly I tried to avoid it because it's really easy.
That's the easy thing to do every day.
It's the easy thing to do, and it's very gratifying to like take some Windex and like wipe off some piece of equipment, and instead of having a little bit of dust on it, it's like shiny and clean, and you're like, that's great. But like, meanwhile, you have like 3 things stacked on top of the toaster that have no business being there, and have been there for 2 months.
Yeah.
So really trying to focus on that.
Nice. Last little one. So our saw has like, it's an auto saw, so it's got like this foot that slides up and down so that it, as the blade is coming down, the foot hits the material and transitions it from its like rapid feed to its proper feed rate for the material. And for whatever reason, the screws that hold that foot to its like shaft just routinely come loose.
Damn.
And the other day we were sawing like all day, like one piece of material over like it was many hours, and no one caught that it was coming loose, and then it fell out and disappeared. The screw did.
Yeah.
And this has happened a handful of times. So I went and I bought a bunch of screws. And then I put them in a little baggie and like clipped them to the front of the saw.
That's awesome.
With Loctite in the bag, everything ready to go. So
so even with Loctite, they back out?
I don't think it had been Loctited before. Okay. So this was the first time. Like got a dedicated Loctite, stuck it in there. Nice. So hopefully it's never needed, but it's probably a 10-year supply.
That's awesome.
And
nice.
Small things.
Awesome. Well, thanks all for listening. Always fun. You can find me at austere_manufacturing on Instagram and austeremfg.com. You can find Arda at arda.cards on Instagram and arda.cards on the internet.
You can find me at you can find the pod at incrementalci on Instagram. You can find me at lichen_mfg on Instagram, lichenprecision.com on the internet, and we will talk to you soon.